everybody, and welcome to WCNC Charlotte's Off the Clock with Carboni podcast. I'm your host, WCNC Sports Director Nick Carboni, and as you can see, I'm back in studio. Feels great. But this podcast is one thing that was born out of working from home, and we're going to continue it. Each week, I will chat with somebody that makes local sports great. And before I get to this week's guest, a reminder, you can watch me for all of your local sports coverage Monday through Friday, and now Sunday nights after the game on WCNC Charlotte. And you can watch this weekend's NASCAR races from Charlotte's Roval on WCNC Charlotte as well. And that leads into my next guest. Salisbury native Doug Rice's voice is one you've probably heard before. He's the president of Performance Racing Network, PRN, which will call the races this weekend. We talked about a wild and in many ways pivotal NASCAR season. And of course, we talked Roval, and he's a Falcons fan, so we had to get that score prediction from Doug for Sunday against the Panthers. Enjoy. All right, Doug, if you could bring back one driver from a different era to race the Roval this weekend, who would it be?
One driver from a different area to race the Roval this weekend. I'm going to go a little bit obscure, but this guy was one of the top road racers in his day. Would have been Ricky Rudd. Won 22 races, and Ricky was one of the absolute best road racers I've ever seen.
All right, so who is your actual Roval prediction from the guys running the race on Sunday? Who do you think is going to win?
I am not going to go. There are two ways to make predictions: be bold and daring and impress people, or just tell you who's going to win. And that's going to be Chase Elliott. He's going to win his fourth road race in a row.
And second Roval in a row, correct?
Yep.
All
exactly.
right.
Last year crashed in turn one, passed the entire field, come back and win.
All right, last one. I hesitate to ask you this week, Doug, but do you have a Panthers-Falcons score prediction for Sunday?
You know, I have watched all of the Panther games and pieces of the Falcons, and the Falcons are in such disarray. I actually think the Panthers are going to break their long losing streak to the Birds. I think it's 27-24 Carolina.
All right, we'll see if the Falcons can turn it around in some sort of similar fashion they did last year. I don't know. It seems they always get off to these slow starts.
I don't know that it's in them this year. I think this 0-4 start has taken a lot of energy out of that team.
All right, Doug. I want to take you way back, growing up in the area. Do you remember when you kind of fell in love with stock car racing? And can you describe that moment or that series of moments?
It was kind of late in my development. I had gone to a local high school, and then I went up to Boone and went to Appalachian State. And I came home one summer, and I'm the fourth out of four brothers. I had four sisters also. And they drug me to the Coca-Cola 600. And we stayed in the infield in a van and watched the race. And it was at that point that I went, okay, I really like this. I was aware of stock car racing, but I'd never been directly exposed to it. Had followed a lot of other sports religiously, but it was that day that the hook was kind of set that, okay, I want to be involved in this some way or another.
What year was that, and who won that race?
I believe David Pearson won that race, and I want to say it was 76. I may be fuzzy on the year, but I know Pearson went on to win the one that I went to that really kind of got me indoctrinated into stock car racing.
What was it about seeing it up close that day that it appealed to you?
The noise, back then, the crowd, the pageantry, from a guy from Salisbury, North Carolina, to see 100,000 people in the grandstands was a little bit bigger than life. And all of a sudden, I thought, man, I want to be a part of this. I loved all other sports too, NFL, MLB at the time, but that just made it a point, and the accessibility for me to start covering it on some level also had a big part to do with it.
Yeah, take me through how you got started, not just loving the sport, but actually working in it.
At the time, back in the late 70s, early 80s, a lot of the networks, United Press International, Associated Press, would hire people called stringers. And you would go to the race and you might file 3 reports, one every hour for 30 seconds, saying, lap 73, Richard Petty is leading David Pearson here at Darlington Raceway. And then at the end, you'd give them a little audio and send it to them. And I did that enough that I started to get to know people in the racing industry, and they would recognize me. And there was a big event. The media tour was just getting started, where they'd have 3 busloads of media people. And we would literally drive around to the different race shops. And I got to know a lot of the folks here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And the guy that went on to run Atlanta Motor Speedway, Ed Clark, called me up after one of the events, and he said, we've got an opening. We need somebody to kind of take over our little radio network, which only did 2 broadcasts a year. And so I left DJing and calling Catawba football in Salisbury to come down here and follow stock car racing.
You know, I got the chance in May at the Coke 600, because we could not go into the race, to really kind of listen to it over the air and over the radio and on streaming. What is it about? I mean, I feel like, you know, you could point to baseball and even football and basketball and say there's something about hearing it that way. What is it about stock car racing that makes it appealing that way?
Nick, I think it's 2 things. One is we have a legacy. Long before the first stock car race was ever covered on television, there's been radio networks. There's been the Motor Racing Network, the Universal Network, PRN. It's been a part of people, especially in the South, growing up, that on Sundays, while they were doing their traditional Sunday drives, to listen to the races. I know that's going back a long way, but also I think there's a sense of excitement that we can convey. We have a lot of people at the races. We will have 8 on-the-air people this weekend at Charlotte Motor Speed. Well, no, 11, because it's the Roval. So we'll have 3 more turn announcers. And we have to convey an interest level and an excitement. Even if the race is a stinker, we'll find some part in it that maybe there's a battle for 8, and we'll go back there. We're not going to oversell it. We're never going to tell you stuff that's happening that's not really happened. But we will try. If we're not interested, the person driving down Interstate 85 is not interested either.
All right. So in 2015, I believe you were the first broadcaster to pull the double Indianapolis 500 and Coca-Cola 600. What was that experience like, and would you do it again?
Oh, absolutely. It was awesome. It was a promotion that some people from Shell Oil came to PRN and said, we would like for Doug to do the Doug double. So I went up to Indianapolis on Thursday of that week with Alexis Erickson from our team. She was there to kind of chronicle the thing. And I had been around IndyCar racing before. I used to cover IndyCar back in the early 2000s. So I wasn't quite foreign to it, but I'd never been to an event like the Indy 500. And I got to go into the pits, and that's where I worked during the day. And the first pit stop I got to call was for Elio Castroneves, because he was in the Shell car. And then I would move down the line to cars that you'd never heard of. And he comes in and he makes a pit stop. And there's a rhythm to a NASCAR pit stop. You may be calling that thing 12, 14 seconds. This was over in like 4.3 seconds. And I called it. And then I called back up to the booth and I said, did I actually say anything? They said, yeah, you did all right. So it was a real treat. All the logistics behind it were fun. And being the only broadcaster to have ever done that, to cover both events live, I'll take a little pride in that. It was a lot of fun, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Let's fast forward to this year. How has all of this has changed everything for all of us, the COVID-19 pandemic? How has it changed for broadcasting races on your network?
It has taken some of the charge out of it. I mean, there's something about going to a racetrack on race day and having massive crowds, and you pick up on that energy and that buzz just walking up to a broadcast booth or being in the garage area. And there's something that lends to an air of importance. But once the race starts, it really doesn't have much impact on us, because we're not a sport like football or baseball that depends upon the roar of the crowd for the home run or the 57-yard run. We depend upon the action on the racetrack. It's not been as much fun this year. You know, we went to New England this year to cover the race there, and we're basically told by the governor, go to the track, order takeout, and go back to your hotel room. Some of that part of it is gone, but the actual covering the race while it's going on hasn't changed too much.
So much has happened this year, from Ryan Newman's wreck, and then to the shutdown, to the restart, to the banning of the Confederate flag, to everything with Bubba Wallace. How do you think this year in NASCAR history will be remembered?
I think if you're writing historical books, and they're usually 200 pages, you need about a 500-page book for this year. I mean, a lot has gone down. big sigh of relief when Ryan Newman wrecked. I mean, I personally thought the guy was injured or possibly dead, and so did a lot of other people. And then you went through a 12-hour period of every rumor in the world coming to the surface. The shutdown was really odd because I was in Atlanta and we were getting ready to cover that race, and they kept rescheduling it. In the back of my mind, I thought, no, we're not going to reschedule. And finally they said, well, go home. We're not racing for a while. The iRacing phenomenon came on and filled a void for about 7 weeks, which I thought was brilliant. Whoever decided that, okay, this is something we can put on television, and people watched it because at that time there were zero sports. I think there was Korean baseball.
That's it. At 2 in the morning.
So the iRacing thing really caught hold and gained a little bit of traction, probably made Clint Boyer a superstar. And then you get all of the social justice situation, the noose in the garage, was there, wasn't there, Bubba Wallace demanding the banning of the Confederate flag, which probably should have been done a long time ago. And I appreciate the people that think that that's something special, but we're supposed to be inclusive. We're supposed to be about everybody. And I don't think that allows that. And that was a big decision. That was a hard, excuse me. It was a hard pill for NASCAR to swallow for a sport that used to have a race at Darlington called the Rebel 400. And this sport has been steeped in that. So to finally make a declarative breakaway from that, I thought was really big. And, now we've got a 40-some-year-old guy that looks like he's may win it all in Kevin Harvick, and then Denny Hamlin. So, I mean, there's a lot of great stories. And plus the fact that NASCAR announced a race lineup next year that is such a departure from what they've done.
Yeah, well, I was going to get to that later. Let's get to it now. 6 road course races, I believe, next year. What do you think has led to the advent of road course racing in NASCAR, and how are people responding to it, I guess? I
think this is a fan-driven thing. For years, fans have clamored for more road courses because they provide a lot of action. They provide what short tracks used to do. Side-by-side, fender banging, spin outs, people getting mad, and they wanted to see more of that. And I think NASCAR listened, so we're going to run the road course at Indy. I'm not crazy about being off the oval. I wish we were doing both, running the oval and the road course at Indianapolis. That one hurt a little bit. Road America, which is a 4-mile behemoth of a track, and then the Circuit of the Americas, the Formula One track down at Austin. I like all of this. I think all of it's great. It's funny though, Nick, how people have transformed. When I was first in this game, a lot of fans didn't want us running any road courses. We go to Riverside, we go to Watkins Glen, and oh no, that's open wheel stuff. Real men don't race road courses. And now, 6 of our tracks are going to be road courses. I'm all in favor of it. I really applaud NASCAR's boldness in going in that direction.
All right, in the next part of my conversation with Doug Rice, what about the Roval this weekend? It's such an important race. 4 drivers will not make it to the next round, and it could rain, and they'll race in it. Here you go. All right, so let's talk about this year's Roval. First of all, no qualifying in practice. Obviously, it's been the case most of this summer. And then you add the mix of rain, possibly, at least at the beginning of the race on Sunday, with Heartburn Turn. I mean, what do you expect from that aspect of it?
I have to looking forward 2 different ways. One, if it's a pretty day like we've had for the first 2 years of the Roval, not a drop of rain, you get 1 race. I've never covered a race in the rain. I have never covered a road course race where the drivers strap on treaded tires and go at it. Part of me kind of hope it rains a little bit so we can just see that. I want to see rooster tails behind the cars, and I want to see who can excel. Does somebody come through that's smarter than everybody else and able to win this? So I think if it rains, and NASCAR doesn't call them rain tires because rain is kind of like a swear word in our sport. They're called wet weather tires, which I just think is ridiculous. But you want to call it a wet weather tire, that's your prerogative. We might see those this weekend, and part of me wants that. Part of me wants to try to call that kind of disaster.
What gives you the Yeah, you predicted Chase Elliott to win again. Obviously, the road course success. How else could you see this race, playing out? Chase is the winner, but with everything involved and it being, setting the field for the round 8.
The 4 guys that are outside of the cut line, Eric Almirola, Kyle Busch, Clint Boyer, Austin Dillon, are all pretty much outside of the cut line. I think Austin and Kyle are 21 points, and then everybody else almost have. Clint Boyer and Eric Almirola practically have to win the race to get in. They're like a team that's tied in the standings and needs somebody else to lose on the last game of the season. Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon need somebody else to have a really bad day. If Joey Logano or Alex Bowman come out and they stuff it in the fence on lap 3 and they're able to turn in a pretty decent performance, they get into the playoffs. That's what they have to have. I don't know, short of one of those guys. And Austin Dillon's not a road racer. He's not going to win this thing. Clint Boyer, pretty good road racer, finished 3rd here last year. Kyle Busch has an average of like 15 on the Roval. And I don't know that Kyle's head's into it right now. I think Kyle Busch, when I hear him talk, to me sounds like a guy that just wants to get this year over with. Let's just move this along and then come back next season and try to win another championship. He is not, despite what he might say, 100% committed to this year.
3rd year of the Roval. How do you think it's gone so far, and what they wanted this track to be, and obviously where it falls on the schedule as a cutoff race?
Well, like everything else this year, the pandemic's hurt it in the sense that they came up with this idea as a way to rejuvenate the fall race at Charlotte. Attendance had dropped way off. The first 2 years of the Roval, attendance bounced back. People love new. They love exciting. And I think they really, really liked what they saw, despite all the dire predictions. I remember Kevin Harvick before the first one basically saying, this is going to be Armageddon. Nobody's going to be left standing. Everybody's going to crash. And he wasn't the only driver that was in that boat. A lot of them were predicting, it's going to be horrible. If anything, it was really rather tame until Martin Truex Jr. and Jimmy Johnson got tangled up on the last corner of the last lap and let Ryan Blaney win. I think it's been an unmitigated success, and I think the success of the Roval indirectly has led to the other road courses being added, because people said, you know what, we can race on the infield of a big track if we have to, and it won't be junk. It'll actually be entertaining. And at the end of the day, that's all that this is. That's all we are. That's all anybody is in the sports world, is entertainment. And people have to give you 2 kinds of currency: their time and their money. And the show has to be good enough to earn both.
What Jimmy Johnson, obviously this will be his final Cup race in Charlotte as a full-time Cup driver. When you look back at his legacy, specifically at this track, what do you think of?
Well, he owned Charlotte Motor Speedway, or at that time Lowe's Motor Speedway, which led to 1,001 conspiracy theorists saying that somehow another Lowe's had paid for Jimmy to win. Mm-hmm. They weren't paying for him to win 11 races at Dover and stupid amounts of races every place else. So I think he's safe in that. Jimmy's going to be known as an all-time champion. Unfortunately, he's also going to be known as the super nice guy. And sometimes I think that works against you. You can be the nice guy, but then you're kind of Dale Murphy, Braves. I wish the personality that Jimmy has shown in the last few years, he had shown a little bit more when he was absolutely just destroying the circuit and had been a touch more endearing to people. But you got to walk a long way to find a negative about Jimmy Johnson.
Doug, good luck with the calls this weekend. What are the best places to find you all this week and this weekend, and what other programming have you got in addition to the races?
Obviously, we will be doing the Xfinity race also, the Drive for the Cure 250. That's a short race. That is like I don't have to pack a sandwich for that race. It's so quick. So that's kind of fun. Mark Garrow and myself will be in the booth right above start-finish line all the way up on top. We will have a turn announcer actually stationed in the infield on the scissor lift. He covers turns 1 through 3. Guy's named Nick Yeoman. He's with the IMS radio network. and I'll unmitigatedly say this, he is one of the best broadcasters I've ever been around. Young guy, but has banter and big vocabulary. Mark James from the Indy Radio Network will cover the next section of the road course. Then Doug Turnbull, who works for WSB in Atlanta, is their real traffic helicopter reporter. I mean, he's actually up in a copter, covers where they come back out onto the road course. And we figure if you can cover traffic in Atlanta, that 39 stock cars is a piece of cake. And then Rob Albright and Brad Gilley will cover the rest of the turns, and we'll have 3 turn announcers. So, 3 pit reporters. So we got a lot of people. It takes a lot of folks to cover these road courses. And when it's clicking and everybody's handing off to everybody and it's going smooth, it is one of the coolest things to be a part of, because it just moves seamlessly. And these guys are really good broadcasters.
As you are, Doug. Thank you for joining us.
Nick, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much to Doug. You can find him on Twitter @Riceman61 and check out PRN while you watch this weekend's race on WCNC Charlotte. Listen to Doug and his team. Go to goprn.com to find out where. And thank you for listening. We'll do this every Friday. Do us a favor and hit subscribe or follow on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, however you're enjoying this. Enjoy the Roval races, and we'll talk to you next week.